had to control everything. I had to control it from beginning to end. I had to be able to manipulate it.
I was having a hard time moving forward. I was paralyzed by a lot of fears.
I was going through the motions as a Christian, but not being the Christian. The real Denise had some ugliness in her, some things about myself that I didn't even want to know because I'd buried so deep.
A lot of people have the misconception now that it's a drug and alcohol program and that's where those people go. It's so much more than that.
The people that come through Celebrate Recovery, the majority of them are Christian. They love the Lord, but they don't know how to handle these hurts, these bad habits and hang-ups.
I still had pride issues. I was still a people pleaser. I still was more concerned with what other people may think in opposed to what God would do.
In the past, I've struggled with many different types of sin. Anger, codependency, looking at the wrong thing on the internet.
Self-abuse, cutting, it could be self-hatred. Eating disorders is huge.
We have times in our life where we feel out of control. Is there any hope for me? Or is this it? Is this as good as it's going to get?
The Celebrate Recovery meeting is where I really feel that I get spiritually connected.
Because I know I'm entering into a place where there's no judgment.
You work on whatever those hurt habits and hang-ups that you may have, you have a chance to work on them in an isolated situation.
We've seen people who came in that were so broken, so down, so hurt, and to watch the transformation is just remarkable.
This is the 6th week of our series on Celebrate Recovery, Healing from Your Hurts, Habits, and Hang-Ups. And every week now, we have a Celebrate Recovery ministry that meets right back there in the orchestra room. You probably passed the sign, you probably saw it when you came in. And it starts at 11:15. If you're on the fence about whether to go to Celebrate Recovery or not, I encourage you to go and check it out. You're going to meet people who care for you and love you and who can identify with you in life. You get to share a little bit if you want. You don't have to. You can listen to other people share. But it's an amazing ministry that's been taking off, and it's kind of astounding, like the percentage. It's something like 15 to 20% of you have been a part of it already in our entire congregation, which is amazing for a church this size. So we've been saying this every week, and you've done a great job of responding, even when I've been on video, I think. So who is Celebrate Recovery for? Everyone. Celebrate Recovery is for everyone. Good job on that one. I can actually hear you this week. Good job. It's for everyone because everyone has a hurt, a habit, or a hang-up in their life that they would like to get rid of. It's just to be human, right? A hurt. You think about Memorial Day, grief, or family stuff, pain from the past, things that happened to us that's just been hard to get over, right? And you've carried it. A hurt, a habit. It could be an addiction of some kind. It could just be, overspending, all kinds of things, we know, right? A hang-up, like maybe, anger issues or just disappointment with life or some kind of frustration in some way. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's anything in the human experience that can be a hurt, habit, or a hang-up, and we all struggle with that. And Celebrate Recovery is for everybody who struggles with a hurt, habit, or a hang-up. This series has been on the 8 principles of Celebrate Recovery that coincide with the 12 steps, in a 12-step program. And these 8 principles come from the Beatitudes in Matthew chapter 5, the blessed are statements that Jesus gives that start the Sermon on the Mount. And so just to to review real quick, the principles of CR. First, I realize I'm not God. I admit I am powerless to control my tendency to do wrong things, and my life is unmanageable. Principle 2, earnestly believe that God exists, that I matter to God, and that God has the power to help me recover. Principle 3, I consciously choose to commit all my life and will to Christ's care and control. Principle 4, I openly examine and confess my hurts, habits, and hang-ups to myself, which might be the hardest person to confess them to God, and to somebody else. This might be a sponsor in Celebrate Recovery, might be a trusted friend. And then step 5 that we talked about last week, I voluntarily submit to any and all changes God wants to make in my life and humbly ask God to remove my character defects. I mean, we're getting action-oriented here. And then today, we're talking about the 6th principle of Celebrate Recovery, And that is, I evaluate all my relationships, offer forgiveness to those who have hurt me, and make amends for harm I have done to others when possible, except when to do so would harm them or others. So forgiveness and making amends, these coincide with steps 8 and 9 in a 12-step program. And then these come from 2 Beatitudes that Jesus gave in Matthew chapter 5. Matthew 5:7, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. And then Matthew 5:9, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. So there are people who have hurt us, and then we have hurt others. You know, all relationships are a two-way street, and it goes both ways. And you may carry tremendous pain from the treatment you received in the past. Again, like in prayer, we said this beginning of Pride Month. It's no secret that people who grow up in the LGBTQ plus community in religious environments in America have all kinds of painful experiences. Yours might be anything at all that you experienced in your childhood. It could be something that you've experienced as an adult. It could be a broken relationship. It could be disappointment. It could be things haven't worked out, you know, the way that you wanted, and you carry pain from that. Maybe, you know, there is somebody in your life that you feel like has inflicted that on you, or who was a major part of that. And maybe you would like to forgive, but you don't know how. Like you've tried, like you just try to, you know, grunt and muster up forgiveness, and it's just hard. Now, we also live in a time in which we are being divided on purpose for political reasons, for monetary reasons. We live in a time of division and offense and anger and grifters, and it can be difficult to understand even where other people are coming from. Like, how could somebody believe that? How could they think that? How could they do that? How could they say that? And we live in a time where it's just hard to understand each other and bring people closer together. And in any of those things, whether it's your personal life and when it comes to forgiveness or making amends, or whether it's just what's going on in society, Jesus can help us here. There is some teaching here that is incredibly freeing. And when you talk about the word forgiveness, it's probably as important to define what it doesn't mean than what it does mean. It could be that you recoil at that word forgiveness. And maybe, just maybe, as we talk today about what forgiveness doesn't mean, that might unlock the door for you. And you're like, wait a second, maybe I can forgive after all. And so these are powerful scriptures and a powerful principle that we have today. So first of all, real quick, we're going to break down these words that Jesus uses, and then I'm going to share some stories with you from last weekend. So when Jesus says, blessed are the merciful, for they will obtain mercy. The word merciful here can also mean compassion, pity, or kindness. And they are related to forgiveness, right? It's this word merciful, it's a view of other people that sees people for more than just their offenses. It sees beyond just the things that offend us. Also sees their frailty, their human need. To be merciful, again, has a connection with feeling pity for somebody. That you can see who they are, and you can almost come to a place of pity for them. Like this person hurt me, or I don't like this person, but now I can almost feel pity because I see who they are. And that's kind of an empowering thing, right? When you can look into somebody and see beyond what offends you or what has hurt you, but also see their own frailty and how that person is to be pitied. Already it's a powerful word. It recognizes that people are people. And all humans fight battles. Some that we can see and some we can't see. My 14-year-old likes to play golf. Both my boys do, actually, and I've always kind of kept them in golf clubs, but the 14-year-old's, he's starting to shoot up now. He's at that age where none of the clothes fit anymore, and so I've been shopping for golf clubs for him. And golf clubs are designed, some of you know this, and some of you don't care, probably, frankly. Golf clubs are designed with your handicap in mind. So you have low handicap, single-digit golfers. They're amazing golfers. They have a particular kind of club that they can use. High handicap golfers like me, we need all the help we can get. So you shop for cavity back clubs, and that means that no matter where you hit the ball on the club face, the club face is designed, or even if you miss hit, even if in like a tour level set of clubs, the ball would go this way. The cavity back high handicap gloves will kind of correct it, and they'll make it go pretty straight. So they're kind to you. I need a kind set of golf clubs. I need a set of golf clubs that pity me, frankly. That's what I need. A merciful set of golf clubs that pity me. But here's the number one word that you're going to encounter when you shop for golf clubs. On the manufacturer's site, in internet forums about the clubs, it starts with an F. It's the word forgiving. How forgiving are these golf clubs? I need forgiving golf clubs. I need golf clubs with that big cavity back, and even a mishit. When I don't swing the club, consistently, even a mishit, it's still going to go pretty straight. It's going to help me out, right? By being a forgiving golf club. How many of you know people in your life? There are two kinds of people, kind of your standoffish, judgmental person. They're kind of skeptical. They kind of look down their noses, and maybe they're not mean or anything. It's just kind of the way they are. It's their personality. You have to prove yourself to them first, and they're just kind of standoffish. And then, do you know anybody who is just kind of relational glue? They just see the best in people. They give people the benefit of the doubt. They're making a conversation with people in the grocery store aisle. They've got like a best friend after waiting to put their groceries on the conveyor belt or something. They're just the kind of people who are forgiving. They're like forgiving club faces, right? They're just merciful, kind, compassionate people. They're just like that. Relational glue. And Jesus is kind of getting at that with these words, merciful. And it's important to note here, in this particular beatitude, Jesus says, blessed are those who are merciful, for they will obtain mercy. It's kind of a get what you give statement. You get what you give. What goes around comes around kind of a statement. Now, I think he's referring to God, that if you decide that you're going to adopt a posture in your life where you are merciful, you're kind, you're compassionate, you're willing to see beyond people's offenses and their exterior, and you're willing to see their frailty, their need. You can even pity them. If you're that kind of person, God will quickly do that for you too. That's who God is. That's who God wants you to be. And maybe there's a bit of a general truth in life that if you are like this towards other people, generally speaking, more people will be like that to you. That life just goes better when you're merciful. And then Jesus says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. These concepts are connected. Being a peacemaker is not, quote unquote, keeping the peace. How many of you know what that means? Keeping the peace. What does that mean? Walking on eggshells? Never mentioning what's actually going on? It means silence. Some of you, maybe in your childhood, felt like you had to keep the peace. You just couldn't say anything. You just walked on eggshells all the time. That's not peace. That's fake peace. Really, it's avoidance just to try to avoid getting hurt sometimes by somebody who is flying off the handle. That's not what it means to be a peacemaker. A peacemaker is somebody who actively works for real peace, which is reconciliation where possible. That two parties who are estranged can come together where possible, resolving conflicts. A peacemaker works actively to be diplomatic and to try to resolve conflicts where possible. Am I emphasizing that enough? Where possible. Why am I emphasizing that? Because relationships are a two-way street. Paul says, as far as it depends on you, can you help me out? Live at peace with everyone. As far as it depends on you, relationships are a two-way street. But a peacemaker is somebody who adopts the posture again, to be merciful, compassionate, kind, to be able to take pity on people, to see beyond their offensive behavior and to see the real them, and to try to bring two opposing parties together if possible. That's what a peacemaker does. And Jesus says they'll be called children of God. It's a beautiful, poetic sounding phrase. It just means, if you do that, if you're merciful, if you're a peacemaker, you're embodying the characteristics of our divine parents. God. So if you're a child of God, it's like you were raised well. God raised you well, and you're acting the way that God does. If you show mercy and compassion and pity, and your posture toward the world is one of trying to be a peacemaker. Now, for some of you, whatever it is you're thinking of that needs, maybe some forgiveness. Maybe you're like, okay, that gives me some tools. The offense that was committed against you is a big deal, but it wasn't like a life-shattering thing, a life-altering thing. And you're like, I think I can. I can pity this person. I can forgive. Maybe some words were exchanged, right? There was a misunderstanding. I can work through that. For some of you, when you heard me talk for the past few minutes, you're like my 14-year-old son. He goes, bro, you just don't know. Maybe you were kind of thinking that. Sounds good. But, Ryan, you have to understand that what I would have to forgive is something heinous. It's something life-altering. It's something I've carried for years. It's something that affected me and the trajectory of my life. Some of you may rightly be thinking that. I want to talk for a second about what forgiveness is not. And I'm going to share a story from a woman who was in a church I served in 20 years ago, and she openly told this story that I think is the ultimate example of this. It's incredibly important to understand what forgiveness is not. And I've talked about this before. If you've been around the well for a while, spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about this for the rest of my ministry career. Whenever we talk about forgiveness, this is too important to skip over. What forgiveness is not. And this list may not be exhaustive, but it's important to understand what forgiveness is not. First of all, forgiveness is not, and we're going to do a big reveal. Let's go to the next. Say it with me. Forgiveness is not trust. Forgiveness is not trust. You can get to a place in your life when you understand what forgiveness really is. Forgiveness can be instantaneous. Trust is trust instantaneous? No, it's not. Trust is rebuilt over time. Trust is earned. And if somebody has offended you in such a way that has broken trust, forgiveness and trust are two very different things. Again, we'll talk about what forgiveness means, and you might find forgiveness can be instantaneous. Trust needs to be rebuilt over time. What do we say about relationships? They're a two-way street. And if a person is willing to rebuild trust, well, that's a beautiful thing. If forgiveness is the doorway and that a person's willing to rebuild trust, man, your relationship could end up, and sometimes your relationship can end up stronger than it was before. Sometimes that's not really realistic. It's not feasible. But forgiveness is not trust. Forgiveness can be instant. Trust must be rebuilt over time. So when we talk about forgiveness, we're not asking you to instantly trust the person. You might be a fool for trusting them, frankly, right? Forgiveness is not trust. Forgiveness is also not, say it with me, excusing. Forgiveness is not excusing the behavior or minimizing it or acting like it wasn't a big deal or downplaying it. Or connected to what we were saying earlier, being able to see who a person is, to see beyond their offense and to see them in their frailty. That doesn't excuse behavior. It's not an excuse, right? So there are people who, or somebody, whatever it is you're thinking, may have hurt you deeply. And if you minimize that, you would be lying. You would be acting like a doormat, like, oh, it wasn't a big deal, but it was, right? And so reconciliation, if possible, isn't going to come out of lying or minimizing what happened like it was no big deal. Forgiveness can be instantaneous, yes. Forgiveness can also be an incredibly powerful action that is even more powerful than an incredibly harmful offense. It may not be that what happened was this little thing. It might have been a really, really big thing. And acting like it isn't would actually minimize the forgiveness. Paul said things like, Where sin abounds, grace much more abounds. Grace, forgiveness can be more powerful than anything, but you don't want to minimize what happened. A big offense might require a really, really big, bold act of forgiveness. So forgiveness is not excusing. Forgiveness is also not, and this might be the hardest for people because cliches are powerful. It's not, say it with me, forgetting. Now, I think what people mean when they say forgive and forget is, if you really can forgive, if you really can put it past you, or put it in the past, and I'll keep messing with this cord, sorry. If you really can forgive, then maybe that means, okay, you don't keep bringing it up again and again. So if that's what people mean by forgive and forget, I'm on board with that. Dredging up the past when it's already been dealt with, okay, yeah. But forgive and forget, while a great cliche, may not even be possible in your life. The human brain, and you know this is true, the human brain remembers painful experiences. It's the way we're wired, so that we don't keep repeating that painful experience. I told a story a couple of years ago, I think last time we talked about this, and it's one that I definitely remember. A couple of years ago, I was cooking a steak in a cast iron pan. And the cast iron pan was first of all on my stove, had it screaming hot. And there's a silicone sleeve that we have on the cast iron pan where you can grab the silicone sleeve and not burn your hand. And so I seared this steak in a cast iron pan, and then to finish it up, I had to put it in the oven for a few minutes. And I took that silicone sleeve, I put it in the oven, and then took the silicone sleeve off. And probably didn't need to, but whatever. I don't really know what I'm doing in the kitchen, surprise, surprise. So I took the silicone sleeve off, closed the oven door, and then a few minutes later, the steak was done. I opened the door, and I forgot that I took that silicone sleeve off. And I grabbed the handle of that cast iron pan. If you've ever done that, let me assure you, I will never do that again. I ran over to the kitchen sink. I ran cold water over my hand. We had like aloe lotion, I put that on there. My brain, when I see that cast iron pan, somewhere in my brain, it's like, don't touch that handle. Because the human brain is just designed to do that, to register painful experiences so that we don't keep doing it, so that we don't keep on grabbing the hot cast iron pan. It might be impossible for you to truly forget what happened. Now, hopefully, if forgiveness is possible, even if reconciliation is possible, whether it is or not, hopefully in time, painful memories will fade, hopefully in time. But the trite cliche of forgive and forget may not really apply. Your brain may not let you completely forget. So what is forgiveness? What does forgiveness mean? This is kind of a stunning thing to some people in church. The word for forgive in the New Testament is the same word as divorce. It literally means to send away. If you divorce somebody in the New Testament, you send them away. Only in forgiveness, you don't send the person away. You send the offense away. You divorce yourself from the offense. You send it away. It's powerful, isn't it? That's what forgiveness means in the New Testament. You send the offense away. It's an empowering move. It's an action, isn't it? It's not like I'm not like succumbing to something. I'm not a doormat. I'm not choosing to trust somebody if they're not rebuilding it, right? I'm not excusing, I'm not minimizing it, I'm not acting like I can just forget it. Right? It's an action. I'm sending it away. I'm choosing to take this offense, this thing that was done to me, and I'm sending it away. Right? It's a powerful action. Forgiveness is divorcing the offense and sending it out of your life. It's kind of like, wow, that's kind of hardcore, right? I mean, that's what forgiveness means in the New Testament. Forgiveness is making the empowering choice to send the offense away. Now, most of us probably know this about forgiveness. And still, though, when it's you in your own life and the pain of that, it's still hard to grasp it and to do it. But we probably know this about forgiveness. And you might be able to instantly recognize in your own life that this is true. You might be able to see it in other people's lives. Not forgiving. And the alternative is, unforgiveness that can produce bitterness, resentment, anger in your life. It's emotionally draining. It's something that over time will shrivel your soul. And so many of us probably know this already. It's just hard when it's you in your life. If you are really not able to forgive, it's not trust, it's not excusing, right? It's not making excuses, it's not forgetting, it's not those things. But if you're not able to send the offense away and get it out of your life, not forgiving can actually hurt you worse than the thing the person did to you. How many of us realize that? Over time. And it's something that can happen slowly. It can make you bitter and resentful. Let's say it's a broken relationship. Somebody hurt you and it broke your relationship. And then you go through, the rest of your life choosing to hold other people at arm's length and not because you got hurt, right? I mean, you put your hand on the hot cast iron handle. And so now you go through life maybe not understanding what forgiveness is, but then not being able to. And then you keep everybody else at a distance and you feel lonely. Because and now like you can't have a relationship with anybody anymore. That hurts worse over time than the original offense did. And we know how easy this is to do. And people are like, hey, you interested in meeting anybody? You're like, something like that. No way, been there, done that, and I mean, it's normal to feel that way for a while. But if people go through their entire life like that, that actually isolates them and hurts them worse than the original offense. Do you see where I'm coming from here? Maybe you don't. Do you see where I'm coming from here? So unforgiveness, CR says it like this. Unforgiveness can produce what CR calls the 3 Ds: depression, despair, and discouragement. When we're not able to get past that thing, we're not able to send it away, we're not able to get it out of our life, and frankly, the person who hurt you, they could be dead. And yet there's still this thing in your life that really needs to be sent away, but you haven't been able to send it away. And they're gone. They can't hurt you anymore. It's over. It's in the past, but it's the unforgiveness that continues to hurt you. You've heard it said, not forgiving somebody is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. So true. I'm going to tell you a story here that I think is the best illustration I can think of what forgiveness can look like. There's a woman in the church I served in 22 years ago. She openly shared about this, and when she was a little girl, her father began abusing her sexually as a little girl. And this continued until she was a young woman. So for years this went on. She said there were times where she would be in her bedroom and her mom would go run an errand or something, and she would watch her mom's car pull out of the driveway. And she knew what was going to happen. You imagine the hell that a child, experiences. And this went on for years and years and years. She got into college, and she got into a campus ministry at the university that she went to, and she became a Christian. She heard about Jesus, and she met this group of friends who wanted to follow Jesus, and she became a Christian, and she learned about the cross and the resurrection. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And Jesus is teaching on forgiveness, and it sounds like some healthy teaching about what forgiveness was and what it wasn't in her life. And she's maybe 20, 21 years old at this point. And amazingly, miraculously, she got to the point in her life where she said, you know what? I want this out of my life. right? My dad, I'm not there anymore for him to do this to me, and I want this out of my life. And she decided that she wanted to forgive her dad. And so she got together with her sister and went to speak with her dad. Sat him down and said, I want you to know, I'm a grown woman now. I'm a Christian. Here's what that means to me. And I want you to know, Dad, that I have come to a place in my life by the power of God that I forgive you. Wow. They're in the living room of their house, the same house where it happened. Now, what do you think his response was? He denied the whole thing. Now, I heard some gasps, and when we were discussed, right? Is it shocking? I mean, no, not right. If a person's going to do that, is it shocking that they're going to deny it? No. I mean, right? So, is reconciliation really possible? No. I mean, let's be realistic. Not really. No. Is she going to trust her dad? Like when she has kids, is he going to babysit? Am I allowed to say this in church? Give me a hell no. Am I allowed to say that? So is she going to, no, there's not going to be any trust. Is she excusing or minimizing what happened? If you heard her tell the story, you would understand, no, she's not. It's a horrid wickedness that does not belong on this earth. So no, she wasn't excusing or minimizing. What was she doing? She was setting herself free. She was setting herself free. His response doesn't matter, frankly. Would have been nice, but I mean, really? She was setting herself free. She decided that she wanted to be a free woman and release the offense. Send the offense away. Yes, this was done to me. I'm done with it. I'm moving on. Send it away. Get it away. It's a powerful move. It's an offensive move. Send it away. I'm going to take this thing that was done to me, this thing that was put on me to carry, and I'm going to send it away. And she became a free woman as a young adult, making a choice like that. Man, thank God for that, and thank God for her courage. That's what real forgiveness looks like. Now, that's a heavy story. I'm going to share some vacation photos with you. Is that okay? And then we're going to have an awesome mini-moni here in just a few minutes, talking about when it comes to forgiveness, all right? My family spent the last weekend in Payson. We were at this baseball tournament, and he played great. It was awesome. And Sunday afternoon, which, Memorial Day weekend, we drove from Payson up to Pine. How many of you have been in Pine? A few? Okay. Beautiful little mountain town a few miles north of Payson. As I drove, it reminded me of where I grew up, actually, with my grandparents in Appalachia. Except the mountains are different, but like the hills and the switchbacks and the hollers, I call it, like the hollowed out roads, it reminded me of that. It's a beautiful place. And so we went to Pine for the day before Memorial Day, and they had a little street fair in Pine, and they have these shops. And so we went to the obligatory antique shop in Pine when in Memorial Day weekend. It was just this Americana experience, this small mountain town. Here's my son acting like he's an old guy on a cane, right? The store owner's probably horrified when they see children walk in to the store for good reason. And then we ate at this little street festival, and we sat at picnic tables under a shelter house, and there was a playground, and then the fire station was next to that, and then the mountains in the background. Just small town Americana. It was perfect for Memorial Day. And then we had ice cream at this awesome little ice cream shop that was a house that had been converted into an ice cream shop. There you see my boys got Cookie Monsters, so their lips were blue, and we had just great ice cream there. And then we used an outhouse like you do when you're in Pine. And the outhouse was next to an old covered wagon, and so we took pictures there. You're getting the picture. Right, just Memorial Day weekend, small town America, just Americana everywhere, and it was a good place to spend Memorial Day weekend. And then when we were eating ice cream, looked over toward the street and saw this guy wearing his shirt. And I don't know if you can read it. It says, family, faith, friends, flag, and firearms. 5 things you don't mess with. On his t-shirt there in Pine. And I was thinking, this people in Pine and Payson, most of the people probably see the world differently than I do. Safe to say. And it's Memorial Day weekend, and maybe where he's coming from is he's thinking of wars in the past. Hitler didn't believe in faith or, in our values. And maybe he's thinking, maybe that's his connection with firearms. First I thought, Jesus, like blessed are the merciful, firearms. What's the connection? But in this guy's mind, maybe he's thinking of Memorial Day, and maybe that's the connection in his mind. And generally speaking, people in that area see the world differently than I do. It's a red area. It's almost entirely white. There isn't much diversity. And I noticed on the drive back from Pine to Payson, most of it's mountainous and you can't really see very far, but there are a couple of clear spots. And there's this massive ridge of mountains to the north along that drive. And some of you know your Arizona geography. And I was like, daggone, it just goes as far as the eye can see. It's like this ridge of mountains. What is that? And if you know your Arizona geography, and I think I'm pronouncing this right, my wife tried to teach me to pronounce it right. It's called the Mogollon Rim. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? So we're known for the Grand Canyon, but the Mogollon Rim is probably the most influential geological feature in Arizona. And it's about 7,000 feet. It runs this diagonal line. Here you see the red line from, the southeast part of the state, northeast. Payson's in the green spot where it says Central Highlands. And then you got Sedona over here. Flagstaff is up on top of the Colorado Plateau. And the Mogollon Rim, I guess I learned on Wikipedia, it's an escarpment. The things you'll learn in church, or maybe you already know that. But I looked it up on Wikipedia. It's an escarpment, which means a cliff that separates a high area from a low area. So you have the higher Colorado Plateau, and then you have the Mogollon Rim where it just drops off. And you have this transition zone where Payson is, and Pine is Strawberry, and then you get down into the valley here eventually, where we're at like 1,000 feet. And I thought, these are little mountain towns. And you're not going to build a diverse metropolis in the transition zone here next to the Mogollon Rim. You switchbacks and mountains and cliffs. You're not getting building equipment up there, right? So what you have is you have little towns where, people think alike, they look alike. They're isolated. They're insulated for that reason. In the city is where you bump into people and rub elbows with people who are different than you. Think about Pride Month, and how in a city, you're going to be in a safer environment, right? Ethnically, racially, a city is a diverse environment because we're all just kind of slammed in here next to each other in a city. But you're not going to have that in the Mogollon Rim. And I thought, these people see the world differently than I do. Most of them, not all of them, most of them. And, where we live has an influence on that. If you don't believe me, here's a political map of Arizona. Does that diagonal line look familiar? Look at that. You have, pinkish, purplish Phoenix. You have blue Flagstaff. Why is Flagstaff more progressive? 3 letters in AU. Because you have a university there. That's why some people don't like universities. Right? And then you have this red diagonal line, and what does that line remind you of? The Mogollon Rim. And it's hilarious, like it's jagged, it's the rim, like that's the cutoff. Because in this transition area, these isolated little mountain towns, you're not gonna have diversity there. There's no geological way, the terrain won't support a big city where you're gonna encounter people who are different than you. And then, it just has to be said, look at Kingman over there. If Kingman's like, you want to know what red looks like? You come over to Kingman, right? You think oh no, you don't know red. So, but anyway, right here in this band along the Mogollon Rim, I thought, you know what? There are people that I disagree with, and there are important things that I've dedicated my life to. And at the same time, when you think about being merciful, being compassionate, being able to pity, being a peacemaker, I realize human beings are small. We are largely products of our environment. Like, you look at this map, the Montguyon Rim is the most influential geological feature in Arizona. Apparently, it's the most influential political feature in Arizona as well. We are largely products of our environment. Some of us have outgrown that. You have your stories. But I thought, you know what? Recognizing the background influences and experiences people have might help us to understand them more fully and might make forgiveness a little easier. Maybe. Maybe, just maybe. It's not an excuse. But understanding we're all pretty small, frail humans, influenced by our environments, the people who raised us, the people we know. And maybe that makes forgiveness a little bit easier. When it comes to making amends, I think making amends is a little bit more advanced. So I'm not going to talk a whole lot about that today. I'm going to wrap it up and bring Janice up here in a moment. If you get to the place where you're at Principle 6 and Celebrate Recovery, I'm going to ask you to kind of lean on your sponsor in CR to help you with the process of making amends. Suffice it to say, making amends is more than an apology when we've hurt somebody else, but it's an attempt to make things right as long as it doesn't do further harm. I think we have a couple of graphics on here about making amends. It's more than an apology. It's an attempt to make things right as long as it does not do further harm. When we've hurt somebody else, we have the opportunity to make amends. But as you get into CR, I'm going to let you talk with your sponsor and other leaders in CR to help you make amends. Now what I'm going to do is bring up Janice. So every week you've had a mini-moni where a leader in CR has given you a mini testimony about what God has done in their life through CR. And today you're going to hear from Janice, who's an influential leader and also helping to put together the child care for Celebrate Recovery. If you're interested in volunteering for that, we'd love to have you. Let's welcome Janice right now to give her mini-moni.
Oh, I can't see any of you. This is great. Okay. Good morning. I am a grateful believer in Jesus. I came to Celebrate Recovery in 2017 to help other people, but I stay to work on my own mental illness, codependency, anger, and control. My name is Janice, and I am a suicide survivor. Hi. I grew up outside of Pittsburgh, PA, in a very legalistic, alcoholic, codependent, perfectionist, and prideful family. While growing up in my household, it included my grandfather, my grandmother, my mom, and myself. When I tried to participate in conversations around the kitchen table, I would be reminded as a child I didn't know enough and that children should be seen and not heard. My completion of my chores was never good enough. I remember when I was vacuuming the formal living room, we never sat in it, my carpet lines were not straight enough. It was expected to complete everything to the standards of perfection, and these standards or expectations were never explained or spoken. When I became upset, my emotions were brushed off and invalidated. I would hear, "Don't cry, there's no reason to cry, I'll give you a reason to cry, or it'll be better by the time you're married." It wasn't. So then I started to interpret these phrases as if my feelings don't matter and I was in the wrong. I always felt that I was being yelled at, but looking back, it was being talked down to and demeaned. I would display characteristics of codependency and perfectionism, trying to be what I thought everyone wanted and expected of me. I had filled up a lot of my time staying busy to avoid my feelings and emotions while I was desperately trying to find love and acceptance. I grew up going to church, and at the age of 7, I made the decision to be baptized, accepting Jesus as my Lord and Savior. But because my mom was a single mom, my baptism was off in the side room with the minister, my mom, and myself. In addition to my active involvement with church, I took dance, I played softball, I was in the marching band, concert band, and jazz band. I felt abandoned and unwanted when my father left. And I had internalized that I wasn't good enough or I did something wrong to make him leave. I was 2. It was expected that I would do things the right way. I must get a college degree. I must get married before I get pregnant. I was expected to anticipate everyone's needs as well as managing other people's triggers and avoid triggering them. I was expected to know things without being taught. It was ingrained in my core that I needed to do things in order so I wouldn't be a disappointment to my family. My family was very prideful, and our problems were ours to work through, and no one else needed to know. So I didn't talk about it. And yet it surprises me when I struggle with it myself. That is called denial, and it's at its finest. When I was in high school, my family was hit with addiction. I tried to continue life as I knew it. I continued to engage in softball band, and I kept going to church. When I was asked how I'm doing within the walls of church, and what I was told to do by my family was lie and say everything is fine. Everything wasn't fine, and I wasn't fine. I started building walls up around myself for self-protection, and they kept getting taller and wider. I was angry at God, and I would minimize the trials I experienced. Jeremiah 29:11 states, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Because of my active involvement in church, I felt God doesn't waste hurts. He has a plan and a purpose. I just didn't know how to process through the pain and rely on Him. In the season of my family addiction, I wore my "that's fine" mask and "I don't need help" mask. I had a few friends and family that I relied to be open and honest with. But I was angry, I was hurt, I acted out, I yelled out, and I cried out, and I felt like I was spiraling out of control and didn't know how to handle it. I walked away from my church. I couldn't keep up the act that everything was okay. I couldn't keep lying to those who cared and loved me. I didn't want to disappoint my family, and I was too prideful to admit I needed the help. And I was unwilling to accept help. And I was unwilling to learn tools that I needed. I removed myself from my friends and isolated myself so I could protect me. I avoided feelings. I avoided being hurt. In high school, I started seeking romantic relationships, looking for someone who could take care of me and marry me so I could have a family. Thinking I could finally find the love I wanted, but I was seeking the love I thought I was only deserving of. I've struggled with depression and anxiety since about 17. I attempted suicide one night, but when I realized the effects of that decision, I drove myself to the hospital. During one of my inpatient mental health stays, I was told by my mom that I was only there for attention since my grandma was in the hospital. I felt dismissed again. I continued to avoid self-help groups such as Al-Anon, and I didn't admit to myself that I was affected by these life-changing events. In 2005, I made a new male friend who helped me move out of my third ex-fiance's house. At the time, I didn't want a relationship. I wanted to work on myself and just be single. I had found that I had fallen into that relationship. We got engaged and started planning our wedding. I had told him very specifically we would be married in my Methodist church and our children would be baptized Methodist. No control issues here. At the time, neither of us attended church or had a relationship with God. We got married in 2007, and we started our family in 2008. We had a daughter, and 2 years later, our son was born. I felt like there was something missing. I started to re-engage in church weekly, and it didn't take me long to realize that there was a God-sized hole that wasn't being filled. My unmet, irrational expectations resulted in me being angry, yelling, and throwing things at people. I didn't know how to communicate effectively, and there was a lot of immaturity still within me. I had to grow up. I was angry when things didn't go the way I wanted them to go or expected them to go. In 2014, we found out we were pregnant again for the 4th time. During the anatomy scan, the doctor told us our son Carter was very sick, and we needed to consider all options that included terminating the pregnancy. The doctor told us that if he survived to birth, it would be challenging and painful for him. I cried out to God while the doctor left the room, asking God to help. On that day, May 20th, I watched our son Carter's heartbeat stop. God had answered my prayers and took him home without me needing to make the decision. I have been able to see God's work through Carter's passing, and I've always gone back and forth between trying to live a life God calls me to live and the life I always thought I wanted or deserved. I was grasping onto whatever control I could find as self-protection. One night, a few months later, I had fallen face first onto the ground and cried out for God to help me. Help me to see how to serve him and stay close. From this, I had a mindset change from believing God doesn't give you more than you can handle to God does give you more than you can handle so that you can lean on him. Psalm 147:3 states, he heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. I started attending Celebrate Recovery in March of 2017. I worked through this step study and made strong connections with my stepsisters, the ladies who went through the step study with me. Sisterhood and the friends I made during this study has really been a blessing. It's been a gift from God to have these ladies in my life to speak truth to me. I never felt that I deserved friends like I gained during recovery. I learned that when I fear being abandoned, I withdraw first to protect myself. Romans 12:2 states, and do not be conformed to this world any longer with its superficial values and customs, but be transformed and progressively changed as you mature spiritually by renewing of your mind, focusing on godly values and ethical attitudes, so that you may prove for yourself what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect in his plan and purpose for you. Through attending Celebrate Recovery and working in step studies, I've learned that I am able to recognize unhealthy patterns of my past. I allowed emotional, verbal, and sexual abuse when I didn't self-advocate or report incidences. I have identified I don't have well-established boundaries. I don't have good self-control. I've identified that I have impulsive spending, and that is not God-honoring. Also, emotionally eating to avoid my feelings, conflict, or confrontation. In the beginning of 2019, I was able to co-lead a step study. And at the same time, my husband and I were expecting a baby for the 6th time, praying for our 3rd living child. I was scared and nervous of what was going to occur over the next month, during the step study and my pregnancy. As the step study began, I felt insecure that I would not be able to lead effectively, and I was reminded and encouraged that God is the one leading, not me, but through him. Him through me. As I worked through the steps, I gained my power back when I was able to pull out the abuse from the dark, share with my step study sisters, and work through the steps with my sponsor. From the physical, sexual, and emotional abuse 12 steps, step 4 was a heart changer for me. It states, make a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves, realizing all wrongs can be forgiven, and renounce the lie that the abuse was our fault. I've been abused emotionally, physically, and sexually, and I no longer feel the shame, and I no longer take ownership of my abuse being my fault. I didn't ask for it, and I didn't deserve it. No one deserves abuse. After continuous prayer for change within myself, for my husband and our marriage, I accepted that my marriage, things were not going well or going to change. December 2020, I made the decision to file for a divorce. I had been so determined to get married and never get divorced that I ignored many identifiers that needed me to pay attention to. June 2021, I was divorced after 17 years together. Divorce was hard, even though I initiated it. I didn't know what to expect navigating through, but I knew God was there for me and with me. God has raised up determination and resiliency within me. Through the struggles, I have trusted God, even when I was hurt, angry, and pushed him away. I never lost sight of trusting what he has and could do. I continue working towards better communication as I navigate co-parenting, shared custody of 2 high schoolers and a kindergartner. I have been intentional in listening to God and following what he tells me to do the first time, hopefully. Through my time in CR, I have found healing, redemption, freedom, and peace. But I found a different Jesus than what I had known before. I'm continuing to build my relationship with him and building a healthy relationship with others. I believed the lies of the world, of who the world said I was, and I didn't listen to who God said I am. I learned to lean on my accountability team and my sponsor when I found I was angry or when I was struggling. And I would call and share the good things too. I've become more consistent in responding and not reacting in anger towards my kids. I have been more easily able to identify when I'm being codependent or when I'm trying to control a situation or an outcome. I can also identify when I have distorted thinking and will reach out to get it out of my head and my heart. I recently asked my kids if they remember when I was angry all the time and yelling, and their answer was no. Celebrate Recovery is helping me to be able to change the trajectory of my children and their families, breaking generational negative responses, and now I'm able to provide love, hope, joy, and support to those who are entrusted to me. I pray that the healing may start in your journey and that we in Celebrate Recovery can share in the victories alongside of you. Keep coming back. It works if you work it, and you are most definitely worth it. Thank you.
Let's thank Janice. Yeah. All right, I invite you to pull out your communion cup here, and if you're online, please take communion with us. And on the night Jesus was betrayed, he took bread. In a meal that he shared with his disciples, he thanked God for the bread, he broke it, and he said, "This is my body broken for you. As often as you eat it, remember me." Let's eat of the bread. And in the same way he took the cup, he thanked God for it, and he said, "This is my blood of the new covenant shed for the forgiveness of sins. As often as you drink it, remember me." Let's drink from the cup. I invite you to pray with me. Oh Lord, we thank you for this sixth principle, to evaluate our relationships and offer forgiveness and make amends. And for those words, blessed are the merciful, for they shall be shown mercy, and blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Lord, we want to be children of God, children of you, to show your mercy, to actively work for real peace. Lord, understanding what forgiveness is and what it's not. For those of us who, as Janice shared, choose the empowering action to offer forgiveness and send the offense away, Lord, may you give us the courage to do that in a way that's real and healthy. And if we make amends, Lord, as maybe in CR with a sponsor or a trusted friend, Lord, we work for peace and try to mend relationships where possible. And that makes us your children. And we thank you in Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen.